Hanoi Street Food. What's it like? Where can you find it? And what's the best way to experience it?
I'm going to answer all of those questions and share a bit of what I learned about Vietnamese cuisine, or more specifically Hanoian cuisine, from my new friend Ngoc. In total, you'll get 13 different street food spots to add to your wish list by the end of this video. And make sure to stick around till the end of the video to get a little recommended reading from Vietnam-obsessive Anthony Bourdain. Alright, let's eat!
Hanoi. Like Rome or Tokyo, it's the kind of place where any reasonable person dreams of eating. The selection is overwhelming when we first arrive. Everywhere we look, there's a restaurant or a street food stall. It's impossible to know where to go, like running through a maze with a blindfold on. So we ask someone at the hotel and end up here. Although pho is traditionally a breakfast dish, we couldn't resist starting the trip with a personal favorite. This spot specializes in Pho Bo, or beef pho, immediately snapping my vegetarian streak.
That aside, it's actually pretty easy to keep vegetarian in Hanoi, if you're so inclined.
The next day we meet up in the old quarter with Ngoc from Hanoi Street Food Tours. We start with Bánh Cuốn, or stuffed rice rolls, another northern Vietnamese specialty. Next we roll up for some Bánh Rán, or Vietnamese sesame balls that are fried and sweetened with a filling made of mung bean paste. Then we immerse ourselves into the wonderful world of Bun Cha.
This is a completely new one for me, and I gotta say, it was love at first slurp. I love this because you have a side dish of rice noodles that you dunk into the broth, and at the table you've got chilies, garlic, sugar, and vinegar that you can add to your liking. This is another Hanoi specialty. Usually it comes with grilled pork patties, but I get mine with egg rolls.
Though there's more Bun Cha to be had in town that might cause me to snap my latest vegetarian streak. To be continued. After the Bun Cha, we spice things up with some papaya salad. Not quite as spicy as the Thai variety, but nonetheless refreshing and flavorful with a dressing made from a combo of fish sauce, lime juice, sugar, and chili. Next, it's time for another Vietnamese staple, at least in my Berlin diet, this eggy Banh Mi. And like the Bun Cha, not my last Banh Mi of the trip.
Of course, Banh Mi is a legacy of French colonial rule. The story goes that the Vietnamese weren't used to eating bread, and they actually thought it was pretty bland. So they started adapting French baguettes to their liking. They started adding their own ingredients like pork, pâté, local herbs, and pickled vegetables. Over time, it became a popular street food item, and those who fled the country in the 70s brought it with them throughout Southeast Asia and overseas to places like the US, France, Canada, and Australia.
Before our last stop, we shuffle into this little shop and try the legendary Vietnamese Egg Coffee. This drink has a pretty cool story as well. Most attribute the creation of it to Nguyen Van Sang, a bartender at a 1940s Hanoian hotel.
Milk was scarce at the time, so he experimented by whisking egg yolks with sugar to create a creamy and sweet substitute for milk and combined it with strong Vietnamese coffee. The coffee sits at the bottom and shoots through the thick eggy layer like a water cannon. Definitely worth a try.
We end the street food tour with a stop for some coconut ice cream that's so delicious, we end up right back there for dessert at the end of the night. But before dessert, we plop onto some plastic stools at Pho Ga 26 to quench Melanie's taste for chicken pho, and I tuck into a vegetarian bowl of noodles with bean sprouts and tofu. The next day, while waiting for the Trang Quoc Pagoda to open, check out my video on Hanoi for more on that, we look out with this vegan spot just around the corner. I'll give you one chance to guess what we have here. That's right, it's another round of pho, and one of the best of the trip. After checking out more of the sites,
seriously, finish this video and then go watch the other video on Hanoi so you can see what you're missing out.
We head to Banh Mi 25. It's an odds recommended spot, so you're likely to find a line. And as someone who is deathly allergic to lines, even I can admit it wasn't that bad of a wait. Not to mention, worth it with a crunchy bite more than worthy of your chompers. For our last supper...
Wait, where have I heard that before?
It's dinner at Katza Vegan and Vegetarian. Okay, it's debatable if this is street food or not. We walked up to the plastic stools out front next to some other Vietnamese customers when an older lady ushered us through the adjacent alley and upstairs to a room full of foreigners and something more like a restaurant. But it's going in the video because it was one of our favorite meals in all of Southeast Asia. You order like one thing and for some reason get 5 other things with it. It was glorious.
And when you pay, the owner hands you a laminated piece of paper with his entire life story on it. How he came from poverty and worked his way up through the food business to support his family and others who grew up like him. Even my cold, rusty heart flittered that evening.
Last but not least, if you've done any research on eating in Hanoi, you've probably heard of this one. That's right, we're here where President Obama and Anthony Bourdain famously noshed on some Bun Cha together. I told you there was more Bun Cha coming.
Look, I'll admit that I was iffy on coming here. I thought it'd be overly touristy and borderline cliche to eat in President Obama and Bourdain's collective footsteps.
But, and there goes that vegetarian streak again, that broth was the most powerful flavor bomb I'd tasted in a long time. Savory, tangy, and slightly sweet.
Now, as we were getting ready to leave, a bus did roll up and a bunch of tourists poured out and went straight up to the second floor where Bourdain and President Obama ate. But up until then, our dining neighbors were all locals.
One of whom playfully laughed at Melanie as he tried to help her with her chopsticks, so I left reasonably confident that this spot wasn't about to drown from the exposure to television.
Now, how about that recommended reading? If you're interested in reading an on-the-ground account of eating not just in Hanoi, but throughout Vietnam, check out Graham Holliday's Eating Vietnam, complete with a foreword from Anthony Bourdain. And as a bonus recommendation, Andrea Nguyen is one of the most well-known Vietnamese cookbook authors out there. On Vice's Munchies channel, she shows you how to make a banh mi, all the while diving into the history of the sandwich. I'll leave a link in the description below to Hanoi Street Food Tours in case you want to book with them. I highly recommend it because unless you speak Vietnamese, you're just going to be pointing at pictures on a menu. Having a guide really helps you get a culinary lay of the land. That's it for this one. If this was even remotely helpful, let me know by liking the video and subscribing so that I know to make more. Then, go watch my other videos from Vietnam and Southeast Asia, and we'll see you next time. God, I really need some pho.